tell you about the work of the famous Norwegian artist Edward Munch. The main theme of today's virtual exhibition will be the idea of the concepts of life and death in the art of Munch. For the purpose of the video, I will go around the simulation and elaborate on 6 of the artworks in detail. For the better understanding of the author and his painting, we must get to know his background, or rather, those moments of his biography that influenced his work. Edward Munch was born on the 12th of December, 1863, in the family of military doctor Christian Munch and his wife, Laura Katrina Munch. Although the Munchs did not live rich, even poor, they came from a culturally influential family. Their distant relative was the famous neoclassical artist, a student of Jacques-Louis David, Jacob Munch. Christian's father was a renowned preacher. When Edward was 5 years old, his mother died of tuberculosis. The father, according to the artist, was kind to children, but was distinguished by morbid religiosity, reaching psychoneurosis. Under the influence of his sermons, impressionable Edward slept badly at night, haunted by visions of hell. When Edward was 15 years old, his older sister Sophie, with whom he was very close, died. Her death left a deep imprint on the future artist. His biographers associate this event with the final disillusionment with the traditional religion. He later recalled how his father walked up and down the room, hands folded in prayer, and could do nothing to help the dying girl. In 1879, Edward entered a technical college, where he showed excellent success in physics, chemistry, and mathematics. But the next year he decided to leave college and become an artist. In 1883, Munch made his public debut. He presented at the exhibition of industrial goods and works of artists in the Palace Park a painting called Study of the Head. In 1885, Munch began a painful affair with Millie Toloff. Munch did not paint a single portrait of Millie, and his biographer, Ayanat, claims that she left no trace in his painting, while other researchers see her image in several paintings. Munch arrived in Paris for the World's Fair. Here he began attending the lessons of Leon Bon, who highly appreciated Munch's ability to draw, but did not approve of his loose use of color. Munch experiments with different styles. Many paintings from this period are marked by the influence of the Impressionism and Pointillism. In December, the news comes from Norway. The father of the family, Christian Munch, died after a stroke. His death dealt a heavy blow to the artist. Munch falls into depression and withdraws into himself, stops attending Bonn's lessons, breaks ties with friends. In 1898, Munch begins an affair with a wealthy young Norwegian woman named Tulla Larsen. In 1802, Tulla, sensing that Munch was growing cold towards her, tried to commit suicide. The artist, who immediately returned from a business trip, rushes between compassion for her and fears that she did this act on purpose in order to influence him. A few days later, a mysterious incident occurred between Munch and Tulla, as a result of which the artist shot himself in the arm. According to one version, Tulla threatened him with suicide, and he tried to snatch the revolver away from her. The artist was hospitalized. Because of this, his mental health was severely compromised. During this period, Munch experienced several nervous breakdowns, entered into quarrels with acquaintances and strangers under weird pretexts. Finally, in 1908, he was admitted to a psychiatric clinic in Copenhagen with a mental breakdown. Beginning in the late 1900s, the artist's style changed towards a harsher manner. Later paintings are painted with broad strokes and are replete with bright contrasting colors. In 1930, the artist suffered a vitreous hemorrhage in his right eye, due to which he almost completely stopped writing. At the same time, he drew sketches reflecting the consequences of this hemorrhage in the form of distorted shapes. According to Munch's will, after his death, all of his work stored in the house were to be transferred to the city. Now, after we got some idea of who Edward Munch is, we will move to the first artwork of today's exhibition. The Sick Child, 1885. One of his first major paintings, inspired by the death of the sister, was called The Sick Child. All his life, sickness and death, suffering and tear were to be his themes. The woman depicted in the painting next to the girl is the artist's aunt, Karin Bjelstad, who took care of her sister's children after her death. Several weeks during which Sophie Munch died of consumption became one of the most terrible periods in Edward's life. In particular, even when he first thought about the meaning of religion, which later led to rejection from me. The canvas makes the beholder feel touching and sentimental. The painting depicted a sickly-looking red-haired girl lying in bed, and a woman in a black dress is holding her hand, bending over. The bright red hair reclining on the girl's pillow emphasizes the unhealthy color of her skin. Semi-darkness reigns in the room, and the only bright spot is the face of the dying girl, which seems to be illuminated by some kind of light, personifying her imminent departure to another world. The woman, perhaps raising desperate prayer to heaven, is holding a fragile child by the hand. Although there are bright colors on the canvas that enliven its appearance, on the whole the work of Edward Munch makes quite a heavy impression. Many dark colors suggest tragic thoughts of imminent and impending death. Despite the gloom of the room and the environment in general, the sick girl's eyes do not express pain or fear. Her gaze is full of humility and calmness. Perhaps she does not understand what should happen to her. This makes the beholder emphasize the suffering of the unfortunate patient. Now let's move to the next artwork, Spring. 1889 became a difficult year to the artist. He was seriously ill, but after an illness while recovering, he wrote a very autobiographical and dense Spring. It combines memories of both his own and his sister's illness, which took her to the grave. This work showed the mature artistic skill of Edward Munch, for which the artist was awarded a state scholarship, thanks to which he was able to travel to Paris. The picture is filled with a large number of interior items that bring the work closer to realism. As in the painting the sick girl is mainly an artistic image. A very pale face, which even the snow-white pillow cannot shade, contrasts with the healthy blush of the woman sitting next to her mother. Evidence of the young girl's illness, a bottle of potion and a round decanter of water, are opposed to the sunlight pouring out of the window in abundance. A fresh breeze blowing over the light curtains contrasts with the gloomy, heavy setting in the room. Spring is Munch's most significant work of that period. On this canvas, the lightness and freshness of Impressionism meets the precision and detail of Naturalism. The dark, heavy tones of the left side of the picture, personifying fear, illness, despair, coexist with the light ones of the right, which give hope and faith in good. The most touching and at the same time sad detail in the picture is the silent, ghostly pale face of the girl with almost closed eyes. While the sun shines and warms the space with its warm rays, she squints and turns away from it. The bright light of the sun and the witnesses of the curtain symbolize purity, holiness, and lightness. The curtains open wide, as if allowing the sun to reach the girl and take it with it to a place where it will be warm and good, somewhere where there will be no this inner cold, eternal fear and suffering. Let's go to the next composition, Separation. 1896, Man and a Woman. A silent scene showing the pain of rejected love, which painter demonstrated with the paints. The girl is all bright, light, and faithless, but the guy is gloomy. His face is grey and holds his heart tightly, which is pouring out blood. And this refusal for him is equal to death, but she does not even suffer. This happens often. The artist does not just describe the story, he told it at his own. Faith and love never returned to the artist. They were patient in his love, but there was no true love. The suffering of the man in the painting is physical. Feverishly clutching the area of the chest where the heart is located, he is deathly pale. On the contrary, the broader spot at the man's feet, like the one that appears around the arm, illustrates pain and anxiety. Black spots around the lifeless tree are a symbol of emotional death. It's interesting that the feminine figure is absolutely devoid of individual traits. This is a generalized image. On the contrary, man is individual. The difference in the perception of the gap by the author is interpreted as a misfortune for a man and a new opportunity for a woman. The color scheme of the painting is sparse but organic and conveys the atmosphere of tension and the depressive component of the plot of the work. Let's move to the next picture, Kiss, 1897. A couple in love, hiding behind a thick curtain, enjoys a kiss while forgetting about everything in the world. Despite the relatively poor color palette, the artist added paint to some details. For example, the prominent orange details of women's clothing not only greatly increase the temperament of the picture, but also create a certain flair, mystery, and even fantasticness around the couple. But the main idea of Edward Munch was to deprive figures of contours and faces. Despite this, he managed to give the plasticity and grace. The absence of faces is the coding of information about the characters in the pictures themselves. The most important thing is their experiences, emotions, feelings, and not social status or any facial features or fears. After all, love should exist exclusively on a spiritual level. Another detail of the picture is the silhouette of the person who is visible through a small window. Edward Munch, as it were, separates real humanity and a faceless, empty society with the help of the curtain. Here, only the intensity of patience is important. In the end, the kiss itself, and everything else that is behind this small square of the room, is insignificant and worth nothing. Now, let's go to the next artwork. Scream, 1893. An example of expressionism in the painting The Scream, by its many variations, is still one of the most mysterious masterpieces of the world painting. Many critics believe that the plot of the picture is the fruit of the sick fantasy of a mentally unhealthy person. Someone sees in the work a premonition of an ecological catastrophe. Someone decides that kind of mummy inspired the author to do this work. For all the philosophizing, the meaning thing disappears, the emotions that this picture evokes, the atmosphere that it conveys, and the idea that each viewer can formulate for himself on his own. The red, fiery-eyed sky covered a cold fjord, which in turn gives rise to a fantastic shadow similar to a certain sea monster. Tension has distorted space, lines have broken, colors don't match, perspective is destroyed. Only the bridge on which the heroes of the paintings stand remains indestructible. It is opposed to the chaos in which the world is plunging. The bridge is a barrier that separates man from nature. Protected by civilization, people have forgotten how to feel, see, and hear. Two indifferent figures in the distance, in no way reacting to what is happening around, only emphasize the tragedy of the plot. The figure of the desperately screaming man, placed in the center of the composition, attracts the viewer's attention in the first place. Despair and horror bordering of intensity are read on the face impersonal to primitiveness. I was walking along the road with two friends. The sun was setting, suddenly the sky turned blood red. I paused, feeling exhausted, and leaning on the fence. There was blood and tongues of fire about the blue-black fjord and the city. My friends walked on, and I stood there trembling with anxiety, and I sensed an infinite scream passing through nature. Munch himself wrote in his diary in 1892. The author managed to convey the most powerful human emotions with scanty means. There is suffering in the eyes. The wide open mouth makes the scream itself piercing and really palpable. Raised hands covering the ears speak of the person's reflex desire to run away from himself, to stop this attack of fear and hopelessness. The loneliness of the protagonist, his fragility and vulnerability, fill all the work with a special tragedy and energy. The author uses a complex technique, using both oil paints and tempera in one work. At the same time, the coloring on the work is simple, even stinging. In fact, two colors, red and blue, as well as a mixture of these two colors, could create the whole work. Intricate, unrealistic curves of the lines in the depiction of the central figure, and nature fill the composition with energy and drama. Now let's move to the final artwork, Night in St. Cloud. In 1889, Edward Munch, who had already enjoyed successful after his first solo exhibition, was forced to leave Paris, where he underwent an internship a cholera epidemic brought out in the city. The artist lives from St. Cloud, where he rents the floor above the cafe. Here he created his satirical painting, Night in St. Cloud. The painting was a kind of response to the great tragedy. Munch overtook the news of the death of his father. It is believed that the painting depicts not the author himself, but his friend, the poet Emmanuel Goldstein. In the painting, we see a dark room illuminated by the main light of the moon, penetrating through the window. Moonlight snatches out of the decanter its spreading languor, white plants, a soft sofa with slippery upholstery. On the floor, a heavy shadow slides the outline of the window into transparent curtains. Dejectedly bowing his head, assuming a hen's posture, a man in a high-top hat is sitting on the sofa. We do not need to see closely and clearly in order to feel that the hero is overwhelmed by sad, disturbing thoughts. The fury spied on the hero during a period of severe mental oppression. A humbly hunched posture, hands neatly folded on his knees, a motionless, frozen figure. It seems that it is not the moon that sets the tone of the world, but this modest man, whose feelings are brighter than the radiance of the moonlight. If you follow the diaries for the state of mind Munch himself, it becomes clear that not only the lust of the loved one oppressed him and brought torment. Now we completed the tour around my exhibition. Thank you for watching my curatorial practice, and I hope that this video was helpful and interesting. Goodbye.